All right, so yesterday we left off in China. Now, a big thing that you need to understand about China is that Mao is going to come into China and he's going to turn it communistic and call it the People's Republic of China. Once Mao is in there, he invites the Russians to come in immediately in a partnership. He invites the Russians in to avoid U.S. intrusion using the Truman Doctrine as the justification for invading China. So, China invites Russia to China, partners, to avoid United States involvement. Everyone good? Yes. Okay, now, your next heading is going to be Korean War. The Korean War is your first proxy war. Who can raise their hand and tell me what's a proxy war? What do you got, Jake? Perfect. When the United States and the Russians use other countries to fight each other. So this is the first proxy war. The United States is going to support the South Koreans. You need to know that. South Korea is going to be propped up by the United States. They're capitalistic. The Russians and Chinese, because keep in mind the Russians and Chinese are now together, the Russians and Chinese are going to prop up North Korea. Okay, so it's Russia and China propping up North Korea. You need to know that North Korea invades first. Okay, so we're going to keep it very simple. North Korea invades first. The U.S. pushed them back way into North Korea. That's all you need to know. Write that down. U.S. pushed them back way into North Korea. And then China and Russia will push them back to the 38th parallel. You need to know 38th parallel. I would underline it, maybe even put it in a box. So, North Korea starts it. United States push the North Koreans deep into North Korea. Then the Chinese and Russians are going to push them to the 38th parallel. When you talk about the Korean War, you have to know the 38th parallel. Like when you talk about the Truman Doctrine, you have to know. When you talk about the Korean War, you need to know. Okay, so the 38th parallel. The war ends in a ceasefire on the 38th parallel. You need to know that. Okay? You need to know the war ends in a ceasefire on the 38th parallel. So today in 2019, are North Korea and South Korea friends? No. They have guns pointed at each other every moment of every single day. Okay? Every single day there are guns ready to shoot at each other if anyone breaks the ceasefire. Okay. Now, I would like you to... what do you got, Morgan? Ceasefire means I'm not going to shoot you, you don't shoot me, but we have not resolved any of our issues. Like, everything is still a shit show. I hate you, you hate me. I want to kill you, you want to kill me. Ta-da. We hate each other, but no one just wants to keep fighting. So we just holding our guns at each other and saying, ah. That's how it goes. Okay. You need to know that we have a new president. Now, I have a nice little list over here. Wherever you keep your Chinese dynasty list, do you remember where that is? Whether it's on the back folder, I would maybe write this list down. I think it's very helpful. So, the U.S. presidents during World War II and Cold War is what I would call the heading. It's right here, U.S. presidents versus in World War II, Cold War. What? A Sharpie? Oh, yeah. Okay, so, first person is FDR. He almost wins World War II, but he dies 2 weeks before the end of Europe. So he almost wins. Almost ends World War II. Second person is Truman. Truman is going to end World War II. Okay? He drops the atomic bombs, and he comes up with the Truman Doctrine, which obviously talks about containment. Yes, when you hear Truman Doctrine, you need to immediately say containment. Okay, so Truman ends World War II, he drops the atomic bombs, and he creates the Truman Doctrine, which is all about containment. Then we have Eisenhower. Eisenhower is going to do domino theory. Now, you don't know what that is, but you will hear in 3 minutes. So, domino theory is Eisenhower. Does anyone know why Eisenhower, how he came to become president, Kaiser?
He's the general in World War II that basically helped with the invasion.
Yeah, he's the one who did D-Day. He's the guy, he's on the Western Front. Not on the Western Front, he's on the European Front. So Eisenhower is going to do domino theory. Then we have Kennedy. Kennedy is going to do Bay of Pigs. going to do the Cuban Missile Crisis, and he does the space race. Now, we have Lyndon B. Johnson in between Kennedy and Dixon, but Nixon, not Dixon, that's fine. We have Lyndon B. Johnson in between, but he does all over civil rights stuff. We're just going to skip him. Okay, because we're talking about Cold War and World War II. Then we have Nixon. He does the Détente, which is no nuclear development or its threats. So this is just a very simple, straightforward list of our major presidents and what they did. Valerie, your nails match your binder. What?
Is FDR planning to use these hollow bombs or not?
It wasn't available. I think they had the first bomb maybe like 3 weeks before he died. I think they did the first Nevada testing.
Oh.
But it's right along that time period. But I mean, he was the one who paid for all of it. He's the one who organized the Manhattan Project and all that stuff. What do you got, Kylie?
What's the no-nuclear?
Tech, development, or threats. All right, here we go. What?
Oh, didn't Russia like weren't they testing nuclear?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. China's going to get them here in about 4 minutes. So, all right, here we go. So, you need to know that we have a new thing called the domino theory. And you're just going to put it under whatever heading you have. If it's under Korea, that's fine. I'm fine with that. Okay, you have a new thing called the domino theory created by Eisenhower, President of the United States. Domino theory is the belief that if one country falls to communism, all the countries around it will fall as well. Domino theory is the belief that if one country falls to communism, all the that whole region is going to fall to it. Okay, so there's a couple big differences between your Truman Doctrine of containment versus domino theory. You need to put a big star. This is seen, communism is seen as a direct threat to the livelihood of the United States. Communism is seen as a direct threat to the livelihood of the United States. Does that seem aggressive terms? Yes. Okay. You also need to write down Eisenhower considered using nuclear weapons in Korea. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to use a nuclear weapon, does that mean it's a light threat or a heavy threat? A heavy threat. That's what I want you to see. With domino theory, it is very, very, very aggressive. They think that it is completely them against us. If they win, we die. If we win, they die. That's what domino theory is all about. Make sure you understand. It's very extreme in comparison to containment. It is very extreme in containment. Now, do we drop a nuclear bomb on Korea? No, we have never done that. We won't do that. Hopefully. I mean, God knows. Okay. You do need to know that China is going to remove Russia from influence in China. Write this down. Right underneath, that's totally fine because they're kind of similar. You need to know that China is going to remove Russia from influence in China because they feel Russia can't provide them anything else. They feel that Russia can't provide China with anything. Okay, and underneath it, you're going to put a big star. China independently created their own nuclear program. They have their own nuclear weapons by themselves. So, who don't they need anymore?
Russia.
Because why? Why don't they need Russia anymore? Who can connect the dots for me? Nate.
They can protect themselves.
There you go. So who's not going to invade them? Because why? There you go. Do you see why they can remove Russia from China? They have the nuclear technology, so do they need the Russians supporting them? Nope. They have the technology on their own, so they kick them out. Okay. Cuba is your next heading. Anyone here Cuban? Yes. All right. over during the revolution? Or grandparents? During this? Very cool. Do you know?
My grandparents came before.
Before the revolution? Oh, so you've just been here forever and ever. That's awesome.
No,
Okay. No? How long have you been here? Since the 50s?
58.
That's in the middle of the Cuban
It
Revolution.
wasn't like they weren't booling across.
They weren't what?
Booling across. Like they just got here.
What did you just say?
They weren't rowing
Oh.
across. Anyway, that's fine. They came because of the revolution.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to know that Fidel Castro is going to lead a communist revolution in Cuba in 1959. Fidel Castro leads a communist revolution in Cuba in 1959. You're going to put a big star underneath it. This is a direct threat to the United States. Why? Why, babe?
Now they have a place to put missiles.
You jumped all over. You have not given me a clear. Now they have a place to put missiles. Who, babe?
Russia.
There you go. Do you see how that's a much clearer point? You need to write down that this is the biggest threat to the United States because it's only 90 miles away. It's only 90 miles away from the U.S. coastline, and Cuba aligns itself with Russia. So you need to know this is a huge threat to the United States because they're only 90 miles from our coastline, and they align themselves with the Russians. Okay. Now, Bay of Pigs, under the same column, under the same heading, Bay of Pigs, designed by JFK. Designed by JFK to train, arm, and transport Cubans back to Cuba to overthrow. It's JFK's plan to weaponize, train, and transport Cuban natives back to Cuba to overthrow. How's it go?
Horrible.
Horrible. Okay? Most people refer to it as the slaughter of pigs. Why? Because they got killed on the beach. Okay? You're going to put a big star. You're going to write epic failure. It is an epic failure. And it's embarrassing as well. If you want to write that down too, that's personally justified. But you need to know it fails because JFK never gave air support. JFK never provided air support. So the CIA is going to train all of these Cuban nationalists how to fight. We're going to give them the best guns we have. We're going to give them the best training. We're even going to provide the boats. JFK says, go get your country back. We'll give you the air support. Then the day of the actual attack, JFK does not provide the air support because he thought that would lead to a direct nuclear war. Does that make sense? When you start bombing another country with planes that have American flags on them, he's like, it's probably not going to go so well. So he withholds the air. These people get murdered on a beach for 3 days. Okay? 1,500 Cubans are going to die in this on top of it. This directly causes the Cuban Missile Crisis. Okay? So, Bay of Pigs is an epic failure. Okay? Kennedy looks like an idiot because A, he organized it but didn't follow through. He just made it worse. So then we have the Cuban Missile Crisis, which is 90 days of threats and nuclear hostility between Russia and the United States. Okay? Now, what's happening during the Cuban Missile Crisis is that JFK is calling Stalin and saying, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to hit the button. I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to do it. And then Stalin's like, hit it. And then Stalin's like, JFK, I'm going to hit the button. I'm going to hit the button. I'm going to hit the button. And JFK's like, do it. And they're going back and forth like this for 90 days. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. No, I'm going to do it. No, I'm going to do it. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. The Russians back down. Okay? The Russians back down. Nothing happens. However, there's two outcomes you need to know. We're going to quarantine Cuba. What does it mean when we quarantine Cuba? What does that mean? What would we do, Kaiser?
Just isolate them.
Yeah, we absolutely isolated and we destroyed their economy. Okay, which is why now when people say they're going to Cuba now, they're starting to. The United States is letting us kind of go back. And that's why people are starting to go back because we're ending the quarantining of Cuba. Second thing is, any Cuban who arrives on American soil immediately gets citizenship. They're the only country in the world that gets this. They're the only people who have ever earned immediate citizenship. Why? Why did we do this? Why? William?
The displacement of people coming from Cuba during that revolution.
No. Autumn?
This is American.
Well, no. Morgan?
Try and show them.
How?
Because they're in somewhere else in the world.
Yes. So, guys, if everyone in Cuba comes to the United States, can you have a communist government if no one's in Cuba?
No.
Nah. That's it. We were just trying to attract all these Cuban people to come to the United States so there'd be no communism in Cuba because there'd be no people in Cuba. That's exactly why we did. Is it successful? Meh. 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 It has created larger issues with other Latin American countries. There's a lot of tension between Cubans and Puerto Ricans, Cubans and Latin Americans because of the difference in toleration of Cubans here in the United States versus other Latin American countries, which is, caused tons of issues. All right. There's your Cuba. Let's go to... So, the changes in the Soviet Union should be your heading. Changes in the Soviet Union. After we do this, the next slide we're doing boards. Changes in the Soviet Union. Stalin's dead. He dies in between 1961 and 64. I can't remember exactly what year. Anyway, Stalin dies and he's replaced by Khrushchev, which is right here. Okay, so Stalin dies and is replaced by Nikita Khrushchev. So, who can tell me my 3 Soviet leaders that we've learned so far? Who are they, Kylie?
We've got Joseph Hunt, we've got Lenin, Joseph Stalin, and
There you go. So we have 3 of them now. So, soon as Khrushchev comes in power, he starts doing de-Stalinization. Anytime you talk about Khrushchev, you have to talk about de-Stalinization. Okay? It's just like every time that you mention Korea, you have to mention...
30th parallel.
Every time you mention the Truman Doctrine, you mention? Containment. There you go. So, with de-Stalinization is allowing some capitalistic ideology into the Soviet Union. Allows some capitalistic ideology and makes it less autocratic. So, they're trying to make it less autocratic, which means they're taking away power from the leaders. Okay? Now, this is going to cause a revolution in Hungary. So, Hungary is going to want more capitalistic ideology, so they revolt. Hungary is the first country to revolt against the Soviet Union. So you need to write down that this directly leads to Hungary revolting for more capitalism. Okay? So, Hungary revolts. The Soviet Union is going to crush it so hard that it completely destroys about half the country. Why? Why would the Soviet lash out so bad? Morgan. Prevent other countries to do it. Now, when Hungary rebels, it's called the Prague Spring. You need to know that. Okay? Hungary's rebellion is the first revolt against the Soviet. Will it be the last? No. What? Hungary's going to go first. Czechoslovakia is going to take it. Just like how it starts catching fire really quickly. Yes? Same thing's going to happen. Hungary's the first one to go and it's going to be crushed. Okay. You also need to know that Nixon is going to sign the Détente with the Soviet Union that lessens nuclear fears. Okay, so Nixon is going to sign the Détente, which is going to lessen nuclear fears by limiting technology and threats. And they're not allowed to say things they used to. They're not allowed to keep expanding technology. remember who I was talking to. It's someone who knows what they were talking about. Apparently now the technology could exist that we could have an atomic bomb the size of a gumball, and that could be carried around and transported. Isn't that terrifying?
Yeah.
That the technology exists. Now, whether a country has developed it or not, there's now a nuclear agreement that they're trying to get signed saying that it cannot be smaller than a certain size. Why? Because it's harder to track when it's super small, right? So that's one of the newer threats we have in 2019. So sleep well tonight, friends. Sleep well. Can you imagine just, bumping around in a little gumball-shaped thing? All right, to the boards. Here we go. What do you got? I have no idea, man. This is like so beyond my capabilities to think about. Like a kid, I don't know who I was talking to. I really don't. I'll think about it. But like I was talking to someone who actually really knows what they're talking about. Yeah, this is like the new threat that people are having, like high up in our government, is that the technology for an atomic bomb, which now we can have hydrogen bombs, which are like 20 or 30 times more powerful than an atomic bomb. We have those, so that's great. But now we have atomic bombs like the size of gumballs, or they could have it. They don't know if I don't know anything, but they could. Isn't that terrifying? Anyway, here we go on your whiteboard. Please tell me, what is the name of the leader of the Cuban Revolution who turns Cuba communist? Good. Sophia. Fidel Castro. On your whiteboard, please tell me who is going to come to China's aid immediately because of threats of the Truman Doctrine? Who is it, Emerson? Russia. On your whiteboard, please tell me who is going to rename China People's Republic of China. Good. Who is it, Bella? Mao. On your whiteboard, please tell me, where is the first proxy war? Good. Where is it, Autumn?
Korea.
On your whiteboard, please tell me, the Korean War ends in a... What is it, Annie? Ceasefire. The Korean War ends on what boundary? Good. Evan. There you go. On your whiteboard, what is the name of the theory that Eisenhower comes up with that says that communism is a direct threat to the United States and it must be dealt with? What is it, Colton? Domino theory. On your whiteboard, please tell me, after Cuba falls to communism, the United States response is what failed attempt? Good. What is it, Nate? On your whiteboard, what is the direct outcome of the Bay of Pigs? It takes 90 days. The whole world holds its breath. Everyone thinks it's going to happen now. What is it, William? Cuban Missile Crisis. So much so they used to have drills, bombing drills here at school, that we would sit under our desk and hope we didn't die. I don't think it's going to happen. Help us, but that's fine. So, okay. On your whiteboard, who replaces Stalin when Stalin dies? Do you have a question, Marla?
Yeah, so Cuba and the U.S. both have
No, the Cubans don't, but the Russians do.
Oh, okay.
So if we bombed Cuba, who's going to bomb us on their behalf? Russia.
So Cuba and Russia are like
They're buddies,
they're
yes.
okay.
Codependent
I
on each
thought
other.
they were. Oh no.
No, they're both communists. Any communist country who
Okay.
turns communist is adopted by the Soviet Union. What is it, Cynthia? Khrushchev. Perfect. What?
Isn't a major part of that the fact that Cuba had nuclear bombs from Russia in
We're not sure. I don't think we're still 100% sure, but we know they had ballistic missiles from
That's
Cuba.
not part of
They had 9 of them focused at the United States.
I thought that was a major aspect of why.
I'm pretty sure it was the threat of Russia dealing with us after we bombed Cuba to get those 9 ballistic missiles not directed at us, that it would erupt into a nuclear war. Not that they had it. I don't
Okay.
think they ever touched the soil of Cuba.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure there was
It's
no nuclear weapons on the soil
Or
of Cuba,
just like the
but it
whole,
would be it would be in reactionary
like,
response.
That was the reason of the blockade, was that so Russia could stop sending missiles to Cuba.
Missiles, yes, but there's a difference between nukes and
Yeah,
missiles.
okay.
There's a difference between nukes and missiles.
Yeah.
Nukes, kaboom, everyone's dead. Missiles are like, oh shit, that city's no longer on the map, right? So there's 9 ballistic missiles on Cuba pointed at the United States, ready to go at any moment during those 9 months. At the end of it, the Cubans turned them away, put them away, and that was kind of the end of the direct impact of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, keep in mind, if the Russians sent an intercontinental ballistic missile, which is like the big scare besides a nuclear bomb, we had like 27 minutes in the air, and the United States can shoot it down. We had that technology, we can shoot it down. However, if it's coming from Cuba, it's in the air for less than a minute. Do we have that technology to shoot it down? No, we don't. And that was the problem with having those 9 ballistic missiles faced here at the United States. They could take out Washington, D.C., New York City, Boston, all these other places within a minute. And the United States would never be able to respond. But if it's coming from Russia, we can respond with our thing called Star Wars. But that never really came about. What?
Wait, isn't the Cuban Missile Crisis because like America had ballistic missiles in like Turkey and we were ending that?
Well, as soon as they caught Cuba, we put ours there as well. It's a complicated issue. Hi, I taught you the World War II in 15 minutes. Can we agree? Do you think World War II is more complicated than I made it in 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Hello, yes. Do I have time to go into every aspect of the Cuban Missile Crisis? No. Do we know the big stuff?
Yeah.
Yes. We got to move on. We got to get to India. Here we go. India. Now this is decolonization. This is your second chapter. India wants its independence post-World War I. Now, what part of the Treaty of Versailles are the Indians really going to hold on to and say, damn it, we deserve it? Cynthia? Self-determination. So, I think we can agree the Indians always wanted to be free of the British, yes? No one wants to be occupied. However, it's after World War I that the Indians have turned completely against the British and say, damn it, we deserve self-determination. Damn it, we want this, so it's going to start a whole thing. You also need to know that there is a thing called an Indian National Congress. Okay? You need to know that there's a thing called the Indian National Congress that was set up under British rule. It was set up under British rule and will lay the foundation for the future Indian nation. Okay, so you need to know that there's a guy named Mohandas Gandhi. This is your Gandhi, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Gandhi is a very common surname in India. We're going to talk about another 2 Gandhis before the end of the year. So, but Mohandas Gandhi is the Gandhi. Does that make sense? He is it. You need to know a couple things about him. You need to know that he is a British-trained lawyer, which means he's Indian. I don't know if you know that. I think you should. Okay, he's an Indian. However, he's incredibly bright. The British took him from India, brought him to Oxford, and he studied British law at Oxford. Okay? He's then going to go to South Africa. Just listen. He's going to go to South Africa, and he's going to deal with all the apartheid stuff. While he's in South Africa, he becomes incredibly disgusted with this whole British law system of how they've orchestrated it. Seeing what's happening in the apartheid, he realizes we can't fight these people. Look at how ingrained this is. So he comes up with a new policy called AHISMA, which you need to write down. AHISMA means nonviolence. While watching the Africans be suffering through this apartheid system, he realizes you can't fight back. So he comes up with AHISMA, and I'm not even going to try. I had one of my girls, she does speak Hindi, she said it to me. It's not going to happen, friends. It's just not going to happen. So that one means passive resistance. Now, there are 2 reasons why anyone would choose nonviolence or passive resistance. What is one reason? Why would someone choose this way to fight for independence? There's 2 reasons. What's one, Nathan?
One would be like so you don't all get slaughtered and die at the hand of the British.
Oh shit, yes. One is you can't win militarily. You should write that down. Why do people fight with nonviolence? Okay, you can't win militarily. You're never going to beat them. Why can't the Indians beat the British? This is the age-old answer. Why can't they beat them? Got it? No.
Not industrialized.
They're not industrialized. They're not industrialized. They can't beat them because they're not industrialized. The second reason why people choose to fight this way is what? Now think about it. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. here in the United States decided to fight with nonviolence. How did he get white people to care about black people in the South and through all throughout the United States? How did he do it, Jake?
Would be by shaming them.
No, he's not going out calling white people, insulting them to shame them. Colton?
To like cause some disruption by gaining more following and showing.
Okay, disruption is going to be a part of it, but how does he do it, Annie?
They like stop following them.
Guys. So if a black man and a black woman come into a diner, they are dressed in their finest clothes, a very nice suit, a very lovely dress, super conservative. They sit down at a counter. And then you see a white policeman come up while they're just sitting there politely, holding their purse, sitting there, okay, start coming and beating the shit out of them, sitting at this counter. Then they throw them to the ground, and then they're kicking them, the man and the woman, in the face, in the chest. They are literally bleeding out on TV. Then they're brought outside, and then they're hosed down with fire hoses to get their head smashed on the door frame as they get arrested. How does nonviolence win, Cynthia?
It brings out the worst of the other side, so
Public opinion wins conflicts. When you see something like that, a man who is not fighting back, a man in a nice suit sits there, just sitting there, a police officer comes, beat the shit out of him, the woman next to him, is that jarring to watch? Do you immediately say there's something wrong with this? Yes? That is the power of nonviolence. It shows the extremes of the other side, which is what Cynthia was getting at. Is it powerful? Yes. So, Gandhi picks nonviolence because A, he knows he can't outgun the British. It's pretty obvious. They're the British. They're India. Non-industrialized. Can't fight back. Second is they want to distort public opinion and they want to show what the problem is, so that's why he does it. Okay. Now, Indian independence is going to start in 1937. Indian independence is going to start in 1937 with its first government excluding England. Now, its final government, when it gets its absolute independence, will be 1947, but here we are. 1937, we get the first attempt at independence outside of England. However, the biggest problem in India, and you need to write this down and put a star next to it, the biggest problem in India is who will have more power, the Hindus or the Muslims. That is the biggest issue of the day. It's actually a huge problem here today. We have Hindus killing Muslims all throughout India today in 2019. Eventually, we also have a plane that, have you heard that India shot down a plane, Pakistan has shot down a plane,
yeah.
and they're kind of going back and forth. It's a huge problem. We're going to talk about it. Goodbye. Good, we got far. Thank you. You only have like 3 more days of lecture ever with me again. I know. And then we'll have more fun. And by more fun, I mean, who knows? Yes! Goodbye. What, Payne? Did you say my name, Payne?